Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Folks, the left is in complete disarray. And you might be asking, well, how do I know that? Well, I know that because even their most ardent of defenders can't seem to jump on the bandwagon. You know, with the Democrats, it's either you're all in or you're not in at all. You're either all in on the crazy train or you're not invited to the party. You're either all in Trump derangement syndrome, Donald Trump is a criminal who must be imprisoned, or you obviously, I guess, naturally land on the other side because you're either all into the insanity or you're sitting outside looking in, thinking to yourself, scratching your head, yeah, these people are crazy. Well, that seems to be happening more and more often. Like I said, even the left's most ardent defenders seem to be slamming on the frickin' brakes. ESPN's Stephen A. Smith now joins on, questioning the official narrative, or more importantly, questioning whether it's working. Easy answer, it's not. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on as the leftist narrative completely implodes. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so let's just take the temperature. I like to tune into some of these cultural shows to just kind of get a feeling as to where people are at. Let's take a look at what's going on in the Stephen A. Smith camp.
According to Henninger, the newest buzzword in politics is lawfare, or using the legal system as a weapon against a political opponent. Henninger questions how many lawsuits, court motions, and judgments against Donald Trump the Democratic Party can actually chow down on. He also ponders about the high price the American system may pay for all of this in excess. Let me tell you something. It was a great opinion piece. I completely agree with Daniel Henninger of the Wall Street Journal, the opinion piece that he wrote in there, because we've got to get to a point where we're saying when's enough's enough. Donald Trump made a very salient point. I know you don't hear me say that often, but it's true. He made a very salient point a couple of weeks ago, or I think it was in the immediate aftermath of Super Tuesday, when he was talking about President Biden, and he was saying, come beat me. Stop trying to use the legal system in order to pull it off. Now, obviously, President Biden would say it has nothing to do with me. He's the president of the United States. He's not the prosecution in Georgia. He's not the prosecutor in New York. Okay, he has nothing to do with those things. So he may say, maybe it's true. But I find it very, very difficult to believe that everybody on the Democratic side is innocent. I mean, when you look at the inordinate amount of charges that are coming Trump's way, I mean, when is enough's enough? Ladies and gentlemen, there's so much to get into. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to simply say this. Trump is kicking the Democrats, you know what. And we're still waiting for him to go to jail. We're still waiting for him because supposedly he's done so much. Russian collusion, remember all of that? We're still waiting for the guilty verdict. We're still waiting for him to be incarcerated. We're still waiting for him to be seen in zebra stripes. You can't touch him. And now he's throwing this salvo. He said, yo, why don't you come beat me? Stop engaging in lawfare and using the legal system to push your political agenda. Come beat me. That's what he did. Listen, I do sports most of the time. That's the kind of language we want to hear, ain't it? Can you beat him or not? You gonna beat him? 4 different polls show that Joe Biden is trailing, that Trump is gaining momentum. You can look at the right and talk about their commitment to Biden's cognitive decline narrative. The fact of the matter is, in half of America's eyes, Trump is seen as damn near criminal. And he's still collecting more campaign dollars and more votes. This article is a very profound one. The high price of Democrats' anti-Trump lawfare. Because when the legal system is utilized this way and people see you getting away with trying to cause all of this ruckus towards him, as opposed to simply beating him at the polls, that gives them additional fodder to question the legal system. And once they do that, it gives them a significant license to be lawless and to engage in lawlessness, which will explain some of the mayhem and the nonsense we've been seeing in the streets of America that would have never been tolerated, even as late and as recently as Barack Obama being in office, or George W. Bush for that matter, or Bill Clinton for that matter. The nonsense that we're seeing in the streets today easily could be attributed to a level of lawlessness that people don't care about committing because they're seeing our politicians manipulate the system in such a way that they don't like it. because it reminds them of things they've always felt about our government to begin with. Which is, by the way, what makes Trump sound like he had a lot of sense when he was comparing himself to the plight of black folks, even though we know better. Anybody black knows that ain't a problem Trump had. But he talked about being a victim. He talked about the system being rigged against him. He talked about the powers that be wielding and influencing a level of power just to make him uncomfortable for their own bidding, as opposed to it being legitimate.
Here he is. Here's Mr. Smith speaking the truth. The Biden administration, the DNC, and really the uniparty establishment is waging a lawfare campaign to destroy Donald Trump. They're weaponizing the government. At the end of the day, I think for a lot of people, Trump's the one who looks like the good guy. He's the guy who's saying the right things. He's sitting there saying, hey, let's duke it out fair and square, and the other team doesn't want to get into the arena and is arguing for a technical disqualification. One side is willing to show up, and the other wants to abuse its power to have the other person removed from the process. But the element that I really want to focus on is the "we're still waiting for" part.
And we're still waiting for him to go to jail. We're still waiting for him because supposedly he's done so much. Russian collusion, remember all of that? We're still waiting for the jury. We're still waiting for the guilty verdict. We're still waiting for him to be incarcerated. We're still waiting for him to be seen in zebra stripes. You can't touch him.
It's been 8 years of this. 8 years of leftists chasing the blue dragon. 8 years of leftists with a plunger on their freaking forehead. At the tip of said plunger is a Twinkie dangling off the cord. 8 freaking years of chasing that Twinkie. Oh, we're gonna get him this time. We're gonna get him this time. He's going to jail this time. How long can you keep up this charade? How long can you do this? Can you string people along, especially people who haven't bought in totally to every insane leftist narrative? How long will you be able to keep this thing running? In my view, not much longer. When you're losing people like Stephen A. Smith, when Stephen A. Smith is questioning the whole thing, well, that's when you know things are changing. Democrats are still riding the hysteria Trump train. Just cause an absolute ruckus, keep yelling at the top of your lungs, the boy who cried wolf, and eventually it's going to pay off. You know, it might have paid off in 2018, it might have paid off in 2020 during a black swan event, but I don't know if it's going to work this time. In a regular election, you need something called a message. An actual political policy message. We are going to do X. The Democrats never talk about this. Trump has a border policy. Close the border, deport illegals. Very simple, common sense. You know where he stands. But the Democrats' stance on the issue is Donald Trump is racist and hates Mexicans. That's not a message. Although that's a little bit of a unique issue, because the real Democrat message is let's import millions of new voters and implement total open border policies. They'd obviously rather avoid making that public and focus just on attacking Donald Trump over and over again. It's hard to tell what they even stand for these days, because everything is about Trump. Trump this, Trump that, democracy this, democracy that, January 6th this, January 6th that. I don't know how well that's going to work in the current day. And if we speculate based on the polls, it doesn't seem to be working so well, especially not with minority voters. If Biden loses in November, it may be over squandering the crucial Hispanic vote. I mean, obviously it isn't working. Let's go back to the border issue. Trump has an actual stance on the border. The Democrat stance is Trump's racist. Trump hates immigrants. Not illegal immigrants. No, he hates all immigrants. That's the lie that the Democrats push. Well, you would expect that strategy is aimed at Latino Americans, the typical Democrat emotional manipulation play. Well, obviously it isn't working. It's having the opposite effect. People are finally waking up and realizing Trump doesn't hate immigrants. He just doesn't want cartel criminals, terrorists, and unvetted foreign nationals and possible spies to simply be able to walk into the country totally nonchalantly, and most people understand that. More and more people aren't buying into or feeding into the hysteria. In their lawfare campaign, their weaponization of the justice system, trying to rip him off the ballot or throw him in jail. And it gets especially worse when the lawfare campaign at each and every step backfires spectacularly. You know, you tend to lose credibility when you illegitimately attempt to throw your political opponent off the ballot. You end up looking pretty bad in those instances. You end up looking pretty bad when you try to charge the former president on supposedly stealing classified documents, taking his own documents home with him, his own presidential documents. Meanwhile, Joe Biden did the same thing except worse. Then he doesn't get off with a slap on the wrist. He gets off completely with the special prosecutor in the case practicing prosecutorial discretion. I'd say the dynamic at this point is pretty clear. If Stephen A. Smith isn't buying it, then that's gotta mean something, right? A uniquely great segment from Stephen A. I thought I'd show it to you guys, talk about it a little bit. Of course, like usual, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.